I never imagined my lowest moment would unfold behind a beach house in Cape May, New Jersey. But there I stood, 32 years old, ankles scraped, wrists bound to a weather-worn deck post, barefoot on damp slate, surrounded by relatives who once smiled through gritted teeth. The laughter was harsh, high-pitched, and deliberate, more like performance art than amusement. My Uncle Craig sipped his bourbon like it was a Sunday barbecue. He raised his glass toward me, voice dripping with disdain. "You've always been the charity case, Lila," he said. "Only thing you've ever built is a fantasy." "Leash," muttered my cousin Brian, already holding up his phone to record me. "Come on, smile for the family legacy." I didn't move. Didn't blink. They weren't getting a reaction, not even a blink of shame. My mother reclined under the pergola, sun hat casting shadows over her indifference. But this whole twisted show, it had been her suggestion. "You think you're better than us because you left?" sneered my older sister Evelyn, swanning past in stilettos. "Turns out you're nothing without the family name." My spine felt like glass. My dignity? Ground down to dust. The soft one. The drifter. The embarrassment. Then came the sound. A low, precise hum of a high-performance engine pulling up the stone drive. Heads turned, voices cut off mid-sentence. A midnight blue Maybach halted by the gates. Engine off, doors unlocked. And out stepped him. Julian Ward. 3 years gone like mist. Standing like a monarch in a storm. Gray suit, every button gleaming, posture unbending. He didn't scan the crowd, just me, only me. My heart stuttered. He walked toward me, slicing through whispers and widened eyes. The crowd parted without resistance, as if instinct recognized power. He reached me, his jaw clenched at the rope burns on my skin. "Lila?" he asked, low and lethal. "Who did this?" No one answered. My uncle blinked, like Julian had spoken Latin. My mother rose too fast, her wine sloshing. Without a word, Julian slipped a slim blade from his inner coat pocket. Clean. Swift. The ropes fell away. I didn't breathe. Couldn't. He took my hand, gently, kissed the bruises like they were sacred. Then he turned to the crowd, eyes flint and steel. "Who here wants to explain this to my lawyers?" "This woman is my wife," Julian said, voice smooth and razor-sharp. "And I want to know who thought tying her like an animal was acceptable." The backyard fell into a silence so absolute it rang in my ears. Evelyn's wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered against the flagstone. "My wife?" My mother repeated the word like it was poison, as if her lungs couldn't bear the syllables. My Uncle Craig opened his mouth, but no words came out. Then Julian delivered the line that tore their smugness to shreds. "This house," he said, glancing at his platinum watch, "I bought it last week. You have 15 minutes to leave." I watched the shift, like watching a storm drop from a clear sky. My Uncle Craig's drink hung limply in his hand. Evelyn looked like she'd been struck by lightning. My mother swayed, blinking as if her balance had betrayed her. Julian turned to me, voice softening. "Did you ever tell them?" I shook my head. I hadn't. Not about the tech ventures we'd launched. Not about the medical debt I'd quietly paid off for 2 cousins. Not about the job offers I turned down so I could stay nearby, close to a family that never cared. Julian looked at them, his voice hardening again. "Lila didn't say a word, because she's still more loyal to this family than any of you deserve." Then he turned, quieter now. This house was drowning. Delinquent taxes, months from foreclosure, creditors closing in. He looked back at me. "She sold her car, emptied her accounts, just to buy you time." I stood taller, their eyes met mine, and for the first time in my life, I didn't flinch. The ones who'd mocked my budget wardrobe now stared like I was a ghost in silk. "When the foreclosure notice came," Julian continued, "she called me, not to cry, not to beg. She just asked me to buy the house. Quietly. So your pride wouldn't suffer." My uncle finally barked, disbelief cracking his voice. "You're lying." Julian didn't blink. He pulled a folded deed from his inner coat pocket. Am I? He handed it to Craig. Signed 3 months ago. By you. I watched Craig's eyes lock on his own signature. His hand trembled. My mother stumbled forward, voice trembling with fury. You deceived us. No, Julian said, steady as ever. She protected you? I finally spoke. My voice cracked. Raw. But it sliced through the silence like broken glass. I saved you, I said, eyes sweeping across the faces that once smirked at me. And you tied me to a post. Julian turned, voice even but unshakable. You didn't raise a failure, he said, locking eyes with my mother, then my uncle. You raised a woman, one who gave everything to keep this family afloat. His tone didn't rise. It didn't have to. The truth did the work for him. She sacrificed her future, her comfort, her dignity. And this is how you repay her? Then, without blinking, Julian delivered the last blow. You have 15 minutes to gather your things. After that, the locks change. And this time, they listened. No shouting, no indignant speeches. Just rustling fabrics, shifting feet, and the hollow sound of people trying to disappear. The same voices that once barked orders at me now whispered frantically, hands grabbing designer coats and handbags off hooks and tabletops. My mother, the same woman who once told me I was the reason our family had lost its standing, walked past without a word, not a glance. As if I were missed. But I wasn't missed anymore. I was the one holding the deed, the one holding the keys. She'd never lived her dreams. And now she couldn't even look me in the eye. Vanessa came next, my older sister. The one who ridiculed my thrift store dresses, my quiet ways, my insignificant consulting job. She tried to pass without acknowledgement. Julian stepped into her path. Vanessa, he said, tone calm and clear, apologize. She blinked, confused, like the word belonged in another language. Excuse me? He didn't move. Apologize? You recorded her. You laughed while she stood there, humiliated in front of strangers. That was your sister. Her jaw clenched, rage beneath the surface. But then, finally, she turned to me. I'm sorry, she said through locked teeth. I didn't answer. I just nodded once. And somehow that crushed her more than anything I could have screamed. My father passed next. He slowed, paused, looked at Julian instead of me. Whatever she told you, she didn't tell me anything. Julian stepped forward, calm. I know. I watched for years while she held this family together, while you all looked the other way. If you've ever been underestimated, silenced, or called a failure, stick with me. This story isn't over yet. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, when I finally take back everything they thought I'd never deserve. My father opened his mouth, maybe to defend himself, maybe to deflect. But Julian didn't let him. You know what's tragic? He said, quiet but clear. She would have forgiven you, even today, if you'd shown even 1 ounce of remorse. That sentence hit like a brick wall. My father's face shifted. Something cracked. Not from guilt, but realization. A flicker of something like regret passed over him. He didn't speak again. Didn't apologize. Didn't stay. He just turned, shoulders low, and walked away. And somehow, that silence was enough. When the last of the cars faded down the gravel drive, and the noise vanished with them, it was just me and Julian, standing alone beneath a lavender Cape May sky. Late summer clung to the air, like a secret not quite ready to let go. Julian brushed a loose strand of hair from my cheek. You all right? I paused, the quiet feeling foreign and healing at once. I think I am now. To my surprise, I laughed. Light, hollowed out and full at the same time. Julian smiled, his expression warm and familiar, like home. Come on, he said, slipping his fingers through mine. You've spent your life saving everyone else. His voice dropped. Let's go save you now. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to let someone The last SUV disappeared down the drive, and the silence it left behind wasn't heavy, it was clean. A kind of stillness that welcomed breath back into tired lungs. The pine trees swayed gently, the last heat of sunset kissed my shoulders, and I realized, for the first time in decades, this house didn't haunt me. It held potential. Where shame used to live, something else had taken root. Possibility. Julian unlocked the door. We stepped inside. I stood in the same foyer I used to tiptoe through like I didn't belong, but tonight I stood tall. Julian set his keys down on the console. Feels different, doesn't it? I nodded. I keep thinking someone's going to yell at me to polish the silver. He looked at me with that calm strength again. No one's going to do that, Avi. Ever again. I walked into the living room, the one where I was once paraded and picked apart. Wine glasses sat like discarded masks. Cake plates abandoned mid-performance. Julian followed quietly. You're allowed to be angry. I'm not, I whispered. I'm just tired. Tired of begging for crumbs, of shrinking. He nodded. You never had to earn their love. The May failed you. Julian's words weren't loud, but they rooted deep. Truth rarely needs volume. We stepped onto the back patio, now bathed in the last warm streaks of sun. Everything was quiet. Gold-tinted. Still. The wooden post where they'd tied me still stood like some haunting monument. Julian walked to it, untied the last frayed rope, and tossed it in the trash without a word. You could sell this place, he said, leaning on the weathered railing. We could start over, Paris, Seattle. Somewhere warm, he added, somewhere free. I smiled. You know I hate snow. He chuckled, low and fond. Then scratch Vermont. I sank down onto the old cedar bench. It creaked beneath me, but for once it didn't feel like it would break. The golden hour sunlight kissed my skin. No longer defensive, no longer waiting for the next passive-aggressive jab or sly comment about being too much or too dramatic. Just stillness. Do you remember when we met? I asked softly. Julian didn't hesitate. Of course. You were juggling 2 jobs, night classes, and still doing your dad's bookkeeping, making sure your mom had her meds on time. And you, I grinned, were living above that used bookstore on Broad Street, building a software company out of that beat-up laptop, and wearing the same hoodie every day because you didn't have time to care. He laughed. That hoodie had sentimental value. Also, no investors liked me back then. You were the only one who did. I looked at him, not the wealth, not the title, but the soul, the stubborn, brilliant man who once saw past my tired eyes and calloused hands and decided I was worth building with. I didn't see a billionaire. I saw my partner. My home. We sat in silence for a while, letting it wash over us. That rare kind of quiet. The kind you don't run from. The kind that heals. I leaned my head on his shoulder, words slipping out before I could swallow them. I want to start over, I whispered. A life. That's mine. He turned toward me, brushing his fingers over mine. Say the word, he murmured. We'll build it, brick by brick. No more performing, no more earning love. And for the first time, the house behind us didn't feel like a cage. It felt like permission. That night we sat on the living room floor, backs against the couch, lights off. The hum of crickets filled the dark. Julian took my hand, gently tracing where the rope had once bitten into my skin, like he was memorizing every wound. This to help it heal. I looked around at the carefully curated family portraits still hanging on the walls. Painted smiles, stiff shoulders, staged affection. I walked up to one, pulled it from the hook, and turned it over. Keep it? Julian asked, gently. I shook my head and placed it face down on the hallway table. No. That's not who I am anymore. Because the truth was, I'd spent years squeezing myself into a frame someone else painted. The obedient daughter, the quiet sister, the fallback plan. They called me dramatic when I spoke up, selfish when I set boundaries, invisible when I succeeded. without their permission. But now, I didn't need permission, and I definitely didn't need their applause. The next morning, I woke in my own bed, sunlight slipping through open windows, the soft scent of rain-soaked pine drifting through the screen. The air felt different. The house had exhaled, as if years of tension had finally cleared. Julian had already made coffee. He handed me a mug without asking, like it was muscle memory, like this was our rhythm now. And for the first time in years, I didn't wake up in a battleground. I woke up whole. Over the next week, we cleared the house room by room. I boxed up my parents' things with steady hands. Not with sorrow, but with clarity. I wasn't grieving, I was releasing. I had carried their expectations, disappointments, and silence long enough. In the attic, I found one of my old spiral notebooks. Battered, stuffed with scribbles and unfinished thoughts. Inside, on the back page, a list titled, "Things I'll Do When I'm Free." Julian leaned over my shoulder. "Learn to paint a sunset?" he teased. I laughed. They weren't big dreams, just mine. "Let's get you some paint," he said, kissing my hair. We turned the old study into a sun-drenched art room. He built the shelves himself. I filled them with messy canvases and rediscovered color. Each brushstroke felt like reclaiming a part of me I thought was gone. We started eating dinner at the oak table, the same one where shame once sat. Now it held bread, candles, laughter. One night, Julian came home and dropped a key into my palm. A lakeside cabin, no neighbors, just quiet. I held it. "Are you running away?" He smiled. "No, I just want you to remember, you have options, not obligations." And that's when I knew. This life wasn't borrowed anymore, it was mine. A few months later, an invitation arrived. My cousin's engagement. My name was spelled wrong. We none guessed, if any. Julian raised an eyebrow. "Wanna go?" I smiled. "No, but I do want to send something." I pulled out a photo, Julian and me at a global tech summit, standing beside his innovation award. We were both smiling, windswept, sunlit, proud. I flipped it over and scribbled a message. "From the useless daughter. Thank you for setting me free." I slid it into the envelope. No venom, no vengeance, just closure. Is truth and peace. Now when I wake, I water my little garden of herbs. I paint. I stretch beneath sun-warmed windows. I walk barefoot across the porch, with coffee in hand, while Julian hums off-key in the kitchen, flipping eggs with dramatic flair. We laugh, not because life is perfect, but because it's finally real. I don't know where we're going next, but I no longer need a map, because the girl they tied to a post that day, she's gone. In her place stands a woman who found her voice, her peace, in a love that never asked her to shrink. And if I could whisper something to that girl, bruised, humiliated, barely upright, I'd say, "Hold on. You're not finished. The best part's still coming." If this story stirred something in you, if you've ever been silenced, overlooked, or told you were too much or never enough, drop me a comment. Tell me what part of this journey felt like yours. Because you're not alone. And maybe, just maybe, if we speak up together, someone else will find the strength to rise. Don't wait for permission to be whole. Don't shrink to fit spaces that were never built for you. But start now. Build your version of peace, brick by brick, word by word, color by color. If you believe in second chances, in quiet strength, in rewriting your story, then I'd love for you to be part of this community. Like, comment, and subscribe. Because healing doesn't happen in silence. And neither does the next chapter. Let's turn the page together.